Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content. So today we're looking at some more imports that are coming in for Blazing Vortex. We seem to be getting a Ritual card and a Ritual monster. So the Ritual monster is called Raging Storm Dragon Burfont. Is that 9 or is that... I think that's 9 because it's a level 9 monster. Anyway, I don't know my Romans, that's how things are. It's a wind attribute dragon type ritual effect monster with 2800 attack and 2800 defense. You can ritual summon this card with Breath of Acclamation. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can discard this card and negate the attack, and if you do, negate that monster's effects. As a quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, return both that monster and this card to the hand. You can only use each effect of Raging Storm Dragon at Beaufort Knight 9 once per turn. My opinion on this card is, for a Ritual monster, for a level 9, it's very weak. It provides one form of an attack negation, which you can get from things like Necro Gardener, which can be easily sent to the graveyard and trigger its effect much more easily. The other concern I have is it's a bit like a compulsory evacuation device in its secondary effect, so even that is outclassed by things that already exist. Whilst I like the idea that they're actually providing a little bit more support for wind attribute monsters, I mean, do they need it? It's one of the attributes that is least supported. The most supported are probably like Dark and Light. Wind is very poorly supported, so they could really use the help, but this is definitely not it. It's not good enough. And now we've got the Ritual card, which actually, if you notice, there's no symbol on it for the Ritual. It needs to have one, and I've actually seen a video which recognises that that's a printing error. Its effect is this card can be used to Ritual summon any wind Ritual monster. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels exactly equal the level of the Ritual monster you Ritual summon. There are a couple of cards that do have this type of effect as well. I think there's a Dark one and there's also an Earth one. There aren't any for the other attributes. The benefit of this card is it lets you just summon any wind attribute Ritual monster, so that's usually the problem with Ritual type cards, because they're too specifically based on whatever monster they have. For example, Garma Sword it's got a very specific name for it and you can't use any other card for it. This provides a little bit more flexibility. The disadvantage is it doesn't have to be the exact same level as the monster you're summoning for it, whereas with the more specific Ritual cards, they tend to say must be that level or more, so there is that kind of concern about it. The next card is Synchro Transmission. It's a normal trap card, and the effect is, during the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon one Synchro monster using monsters you control as material. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Synchro monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck, then draw one card. You can only use each effect of Synchro Transmission once per turn. So this helps you to Synchro summon during your opponent's turn. This is really good if one of your cards is under threat, or if you've gone into, say, battle and then something happens where your monster is about to be destroyed, you can just Synchro summon using cards you have already on the field. The benefit is it also doesn't give you any sort of limitations on it. It doesn't have to be a specific level. So long as you've got a tuner and a non-tuner monster and you can make something that you've got in your extra deck, you're perfectly good to go with it. The other effect is also quite useful because being able to recover a Synchro monster if it's been a long duel, or in certain duels you've got certain archetypes and decks, you do have to run so many different Synchro monsters, and for Synchro climbing decks it's really difficult to get the space to recover those cards. This is a good way of doing that, and also you're able to draw from that effect as well. Being able to do that, it just adds to the consistency of the deck, and it's obviously advisable as well. The next card is Pendulum Encore. It's a normal trap card, and the effect is, during your opponent's main phase, you can discard one card. Immediately after this effect resolves, you can Pendulum summon a Pendulum monster. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, cards in your Pendulum zones cannot activate their effects and cannot be destroyed by your card effects. Also, shuffle them into the deck during the main end phase. You can only activate one Pendulum Encore per turn. Again, this is very similar to that Synchro Transmission. This lets you pendulum summon during your opponent's turn. It's really good, but the downside is you do lose your pendulum scales because you can't even trigger their effects to destroy themselves and put themselves back in the extra deck. They just go back to your deck. It's a minimal disadvantage because if you've got enough cards on board, then it won't make a difference. But, you know, it is one of the last weaknesses. And this is actually a card that I've mentioned before, the Virtual World cards, and I'll actually leave that in the description for the link to this card. It's a useful card, and these cards are either worm types or they're also psychic type monsters as well. It's a combination of both, and they're either earth attribute or the wind attribute, and they have some kind of link between their boss monster is like some mystic fox looking creature. It's really impressive looking, and honestly it's nice that they're also importing this, because sometimes it takes ages to transfer things from the OCG to the TCG. It's often that way, it's rarely ever the TCG transferring to the OCG, but I think they are looking to support their non-Japanese fans a little bit more now.